This book, written 30 years ago, clearly outlined how golfers can literally lower their scores overnight. Once you understand these 5 rules, it's all about whether or not you have the discipline to stick with them. Hi, my name is Jon Sherman. I'm the author of The 4 Foundations of Golf, and on this channel, I am teaching you how to play this game. So I feel a little embarrassed. For years, I was told to read The Elements of Scoring by Raymond Floyd, but I never picked it up until recently, and this book is filled with a ton of gold for golfers who are looking to get better and, most importantly, lower their scores. Floyd clearly articulated how golfers of all levels can become efficient scorers, especially when they're not playing their best. In this video, I'm going to highlight some of the takeaways that reinforce a lot of the information I've been trying to hammer into the heads of stubborn golfers for years. And even reminders to myself, because certainly I'm not perfect. Let's start with the most important quote from the book, which is even more relevant 30 years later. Scoring well is the most surefire way to enjoy golf. There are more people obsessed with golf than ever before, yet most are consumed with swing mechanics. The reason most people don't know how to score is because they don't know how to play. So I believe every golfer needs to understand the difference between physical skills and scoring skills. To be the absolute best version of yourself, you need to be efficient and squeeze every ounce of scoring ability out of your physical ability. Now, I call these playing skills. So if you've come to this video after watching 10 swing videos, maybe it's time to focus on becoming a scorer. Playing skills are different than your golf swing. It's how you manage your attitude, how you pick clubs, and how you let the round unfold. There's an art and a science to this, and you never fully conquer becoming a scoring master because we're all human and we make mistakes on the golf course. Floyd wrote, "I discovered there are no perfect golfers. The successful ones all play around their limitations. I learned that if I minimize the effect of my weaknesses, I could do well." And of course, he did very well. He won over 60 times and 4 major championships. Now, the funny thing about all of this is that it seems so obvious when you understand the rules of scoring. But most golfers either don't see the full picture clearly, or they're just too stubborn and lack discipline on the golf course. And trust me, I've been there for so many years. Here's the clearest way that Raymond Floyd described it. The easiest way to shoot lower scores is to avoid making higher ones. It sounds self-evident, but it's not. If there was a golden rule of scoring, that quote would be it. Golf tricked me for years believing I had to make more spectacular birdies and pars, but until I didn't clean up my big mistakes, I really didn't fulfill my potential as a player. Now, your game is exactly the same. So let's go through what I would call the Mount Rushmore of scoring rules. Floyd knew these decades ago, and they're never going out of style. If you follow these rules, I promise you're gonna start breaking 100, 90, 80, and start shooting lower scores. Now, number 1 is the cardinal sin. Like every other tour player at Pro-Ams, Floyd noticed that golfers did not take enough club into greens. They routinely choose a club based on their best swing and not their typical one. He wrote, "Usually they choose a club that will get them only to the hole if they hit it dead flush with a hard swing, and more often than not, they mishit it." Years later, this is still happening. I've looked at shot patterns from golfers of all levels and every shot tracking database out there, and most golfers are still missing greens way too much to the short side. They're not taking enough club. And this is why you have to be so diligent about knowing your true distances for each club in your bag. But more importantly, you have to make smarter strategic decisions. This is why you'll always hear me telling golfers that they should be using GPS devices for yardages and try to avoid leaning on laser rangefinders. So in other words, instead of focusing on the yardage to the pin, I believe most golfers should be thinking about a number somewhere between the middle to the back of the green. And that is the perfect segue to the sponsor of this video, Amazfit. I've been wearing their Balance 2 GPS watch on and off the golf course, and it is a perfect companion to make smarter decisions and fit in with an active lifestyle. You can download up to 40,000 full-colored maps of golf courses with no ongoing fees from their Zep app. The OLED screen is crystal clear in direct sunlight, so I'm able to clearly see my yardage to the front, center, and back to every green. More importantly, I can see distances to hazards, so I can make smarter decisions on targets and club selections off the tee and with approach shots. And I can also input my average driving distance, so I can quickly see a visual arc of my landing zone on every hole. But this watch also fits in with all of the training I do off the golf course. I'm tracking my heart rate on daily walks, cardio workouts, and strength training. The Balance 2 comes with free access to the Zepp app, which is giving me all kinds of data on my sleep, stress levels, and exercise that I'm doing. And it's seamlessly integrating the data with multiple platforms, most notably Apple Health. To learn more about the Amazfit Balance 2 and get a special discount, click on the link in the description of this video. And another quick and easy way to prevent higher scores is just to aim towards the middle of the green and forget the pin placement. Raymond Floyd wrote, "You may feel as though you're giving up birdie chances by not shooting at the pin as often, but the advantages and increased margin for error outweigh the occasional disadvantages." Now, obviously, Raymond Floyd is not the only player who's given this advice, but this makes golf a lot easier for most players because they have a simple plan and can stick with it throughout the round. Yes, you absolutely want to hit more greens in regulation, but also give yourself easier wedge shots when you do miss, and more importantly, avoid being short-sided. And yes, if you do have more extreme green designs like steep bunkers or even water on one side of the green, you should adjust your aim farther away from trouble if the other side of the green is mostly safer. Now, approach shot strategy can get more advanced for better players, but I can't tell you how many messages I've gotten over the years from golfers who are shooting their best scores simply because they're taking more club and not being too aggressive with pin locations. Always remember Floyd's North Star statement: it's easier to shoot lower scores by preventing bigger ones. Now let's move on to another easy score saver for all of you. Recently, I asked on Twitter what's the most boring thing golfers have done to save more strokes on the course. I got close to 1,000 responses, and by far and away the most common answer was some form of the following statement: "I stopped hitting hero shots and took my medicine." And here's a great quote from Floyd that is probably one of the best observations of golfers at different levels. "Good players hit bad shots, but they rarely hit two in a row, and it's even rarer for them to follow a bad shot with a dumb one." If you've been following me for a while, you know that I will never stop hammering this point home. PGA Tour players are not making par from the trees most of the time, despite what you're seeing on TV. 80% of the time, they're actually making bogey from recovery situations. Floyd wrote, "If you've got yourself into trouble, get yourself out of it." There's literally nothing else to say here. Get your ball back to safety when you're in the trees, a fairway bunker, or a tough lie in the rough. You will save so many strokes over the long run versus doing something dumb. Floyd also stated that golfers should practice these safety shots when they're in trouble. So yeah, when you're on the range, take some time to hit low punch shots that you can roll out between 30 to 80 yards so that you feel comfortable executing them on the course. Now, the next strategy is equally important. Raymond Floyd and many other golfers knew this scoring rule before strokes gained came out and modern analytics, especially off the tee. He wrote, "A good driver evaluates what confronts him and makes a conscious decision to avoid big trouble and get the ball in play." Now, I do think certain things he said in the book would be revised based on what we know now, but the concept of taking the easy way out when possible is still a foundational strategy that saves strokes. Yes, we want to advance the ball as far as possible and hit fairways off the tee, especially with our driver, but big trouble like trees, water hazards disproportionately punish our scores. So when you pick a target on every hole, hopefully before your round even starts, the question you should keep asking yourself is, where is the big trouble and can I aim away from it? So let's say there's trees on one side of the hole and just rough on the other, then yes, you can aim a little bit to the safer side of the hole. And this can play out with approach shot strategy as well if the green complex is extreme on one side. Now, sometimes we can't take the easy way out, but if you start looking around most of the courses you're playing, many holes will present you with an opportunity to adjust your target a bit. And this is another way to score lower by avoiding the big number. Now let's talk about staying within your wheelhouse and making simple shot decisions. Raymond Floyd wrote, "There's no sense in trying to hit shots that you can't pull off. When you find your predominant shot pattern, build your game around it. If you're going to be a scorer, you have to use what's most reliable for you." Recently, I visited the Baseball Hall of Fame with my son, and we were carefully reading through all the plaques. And there was only one player in the entire Hall of Fame who unanimously was voted in with 100% of the votes, Mariano Rivera. And the crazy part is that this guy only had one pitch. Everyone knew it was coming, and they still couldn't hit it. And I think that's the type of golfer you want to become. You don't need to fade it and draw it into dog legs or different pin positions. You don't need to to have a fancy punch shot into the wind, and you don't need 4 different wedge shots around the green. Now, the reason for this is that most golfers don't have a lot of time to practice like tour players, and Floyd believed that it was a fool's errand to try shots that you didn't work on enough off the golf course. So think about simplifying your game and becoming what I would call a stock shot golfer. You're gonna have more confidence and, more importantly, make less big mistakes. And it just simplifies your decision making on the course. But all of these rules I've discussed in this video don't mean anything if you can't master this concept. In my book, The 4 Foundations of Golf, I talked about how it's best to think about golf as a series of independent decisions. Now, of course, I didn't invent this concept, but through a lot of dumb decisions and worrying about my score, I arrived at a similar conclusion to what Floyd wrote about scoring efficiently. He said, "There is really nothing you can gain about knowing what you're shooting. In almost all the best rounds I've ever shot, I didn't know where I stood in relation to par. I simply played one shot at a time." This is probably the hardest challenge in golf. How can we treat each shot as an isolated event where we're simply trying to make the best decision possible and, more importantly, commit to it? Because it's so much easier when we're on the trees on the 13th hole and start thinking, well, if I can make a par here, I still have a chance to break 90 for the day. But this is the discipline required to become a better scorer if you really want it. Eventually, you can start to deal with the pressure of scoring expectations and figuring out ways to get past a bad start to your round. Or even the flip side, when you have a great round going and you don't want to blow it. Either way, it all comes down to each singular shot. Can you trick your mind into not thinking about the past or the future and just ask a good question over and over again? What's the best decision that I can make here? If you can do this more often, you don't need to be perfect. It's another guaranteed way to lower scores. Treating golf as a series of independent events is how you hold yourself accountable to all the good decisions that I've discussed in this video. Whether that's approach shot or tee shot targets, taking your medicine when you're in trouble, or simplifying the types of shots that you're playing on the course. Because it all seems simple and straightforward right now as you're watching this video, but in the heat of the moment, your mind is going to trick you into doing the exact opposite. That's why golf is so hard. You're gonna chase that front pin because you wanna make a birdie. You're gonna try and thread the ball through that opening in the trees because you wanna save par. Or clear that lip in the fairway bunker because you're pissed at yourself for hitting it there. And then you're stuck in the cycle that holds almost every golfer back. You're making big numbers. So I'd encourage you to read this entire book. I'll include the link below in the description. This is all really simple information to apply to your game immediately. But it's really more about building your identity and habits around these rules. And this is something that you have to work on over time, and you never will fully conquer it. So feel free to share your experience on how you became a more efficient scorer in the comments section. I always love getting ideas from other golfers. And don't miss my other video where I explore another great golf book that reveals timeless secrets to this game that we all love.